We do it dozens of times a day, probably without even thinking about it. Logging into websites, apps, you name it. But have you ever wondered what's actually happening in that split second after you hit enter? Well, it's not magic, it's this incredibly complex digital security dance. And today, we're going to break down every single move.
So yeah, what really happens in that moment? You type in your username, your password, you click that button, and then what? How on earth does some server that could be thousands of miles away just know that it's you and not some imposter?
The best way to think about it is as a digital handshake. It's this super fast back-and-forth conversation to prove you are who you say you are. Your device says, hey, here's my proof, the server looks at it, and if it all checks out, the door swings right open. So, let's pull apart this handshake, starting with the part we all know, the password.
Right, so the first part of this handshake is that secret you type in, your password. But here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. The way a service handles that password is what separates a secure system from, well, a total disaster waiting to happen.
Okay, here is the #1 golden rule of password security. A service should never, ever store your actual password. Storing it as plain text that anyone can read is a security nightmare. Instead, what they do is store this scrambled-up cryptographic version of it. Think of it like a one-way digital fingerprint of your password that's basically impossible to reverse.
So, this scrambling process, it's called hashing. It's a one-way street. Now here's the part that sounds a little weird. When it comes to passwords, you actually want this process to be slow. I know, it's counterintuitive, but functions like Argon2 or bcrypt are designed to be slow and use up a lot of computing power. Why? Because it makes it incredibly expensive and time-consuming for a hacker to try and guess millions of passwords, even if they manage to steal the whole database of hashes. But wait, what if two different people use the same super common password, like password123? Wouldn't they have the same hash? That's where salting comes in. Before the server hashes your password, it adds a unique, random chunk of data to it. That's the salt. This means password123 for you with your salt creates a totally different hash than password123 for someone else with their salt. It makes those widespread attacks way, way harder. Okay, so let's just run through that flow one more time. You type in your password, the server grabs your unique salt and sticks it onto your password. Then it runs that whole combination through that deliberately slow hash function. And finally, it compares that result to the hash it has stored in its database. If they match, boom! The first part of our digital handshake is a success.
All right, you're in. But you don't have to keep putting in your password every single time you click on something, right? That would be awful. So how does that work? Well, this is where the server hands you a kind of digital hall pass to prove you're allowed to be there.
So as soon as that password check is complete, the server gives your browser this temporary pass. And with every single page you visit or every button you click, your browser just flashes that pass back at the server, basically saying, hey, it's me. I'm already logged in, remember? Now, these digital passes, they come in two main flavors. The classic way is with something called session cookies. You can think of this like a coat check at a restaurant. The server holds on to all your information and just gives you a simple little ticket number. The more modern way uses something called JWTs, or JSON Web Tokens. This is more like an all-access VIP lanyard that has your identity written right on it, and it's all digitally signed for security. The server doesn't have to look you up every time. It just has to check the pass.
To get the best of both worlds, top-notch security, but also convenience, most modern systems use this really clever two-token system. You get a short-lived access token, which is like a key that only works for maybe 15 minutes. When that one expires, your device uses a separate, much more secure refresh token to quietly go back to the server and ask for a new access token, all without you ever having to log in again. It's pretty smart.
But let's be real. A password, even a really strong one, is still just a single lock on your digital door. What happens if a thief manages to steal that one key? Well, that's why we need a second lock, multi-factor authentication, or MFA.
MFA just makes it so much harder for a bad guy to break in. The idea is actually really simple. You have to prove your identity using more than one factor. It's all about combining something you know, like your password, with something you have, like your phone, or even something you are, like your fingerprint.
So, the most common type of MFA you see is that little code they send you in a text message. And look, it's way, way better than nothing, but it does have a pretty big weakness. There's this attack called a SIM swap, where criminals trick your phone company into moving your phone number over to their device. And if they do that, they can intercept all your security codes.
A much, much safer option is to use an authenticator app.
The way this works is the app and the website share a secret key, and then, using the current time, the app generates a new 6-digit code every 30 seconds. Because that code is created right there on your device and it never travels over the phone network, it's totally immune to that SIM swapping attack.
But if you want the absolute gold standard for security, you've got to look at hardware-based authentication. I'm talking about physical keys like a YubiKey, or the secure chips built right into our phones now. These use really powerful cryptography that is virtually phishing-proof. You literally can't be tricked into entering your code on a fake website because the key is designed to only talk to the real one.
So we've built a pretty strong digital handshake, but attackers are always trying to break it. So let's look at a couple of the most common ways they try to do that, and more importantly, how you can defend yourself. Okay, the most common attack, by a long shot, is something called credential stuffing. And it is brutally simple. Attackers get their hands on these massive lists of usernames and passwords from a data breach at some company, and then they just automatically try to stuff those same credentials into the login pages of every other major service out there, just betting that you reused your password somewhere else.
The defense against this is also pretty simple, but it does take a little discipline. First, you have to use a unique password for every single website. A password manager is basically essential for this. And second, turn on MFA everywhere you can, because even if an attacker gets your password, that second lock is going to stop them cold.
But of course, attackers are adapting. There's a newer attack called MFA fatigue, and it targets our own impatience. If an attacker gets your password, they can just trigger login attempts over and over and over again, spamming your phone with those push notifications until, out of pure frustration, you accidentally hit approve.
To fight back against this, services are getting a lot smarter. You're starting to see things like number matching, where you have to type a number from the screen into your app. They'll also show you the location of the login attempt. But the real golden rule is just this. If you weren't actively trying to log in at that exact second, never, ever approve the request. Simple as that.
When you think about it, all of these incredibly complex systems, hashing, salting, tokens, MFA, they're all designed to protect the single weakest link in the entire security chain, the password that a human has to remember. So the real future of logging in isn't about making better passwords. It's about getting rid of them completely.
And that future is already being built right now with something called passkeys. Instead of a password, a unique cryptographic key is stored securely on your device, like your phone. To log in, you just use your phone's fingerprint sensor or Face ID. There's no password to steal, which makes it way easier for you and a complete nightmare for phishing attackers.
You know, in the end, every single technical detail we've talked about today really just serves one purpose. Just like this slide says, authentication is the foundation of trust on the internet. That whole digital handshake, it's all about creating trust in this anonymous digital world. The hashing algorithm, the type of MFA you use, these aren't just minor details. They are the literal building blocks of that trust.
So, that brings us to the final and I think the most important question. Now that you've seen what's going on behind the curtain, from password salting to push notifications, it's time to take a look at your own accounts. Is your digital handshake strong enough? Thanks for joining me.